And good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to another live Xanadu Gallery online critique group session. Today is Wednesday, April 13th, 2022. Great to be back here with you on a Wednesday morning and to have the opportunity to share some more artwork. This is I always look forward to the Wednesday morning and the opportunity that we have to see a variety of artwork and to meet y'all. And so I'd like to go ahead and welcome our featured artist this morning, Daryl Erdmann, who's joining us from Salt Lake City, Utah, his studio. And Daryl, I'll go ahead and have you unmute to join us. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it is great to have you. And as we are want to do, as is traditional here, let's start, Daryl, by talking a little bit about your background, how you came to be interested in art, and the work that you're creating.
All right. I started out in high school with a really, really great teacher that his name will be unmentioned here, but he was really great and he got me started. And when I came into his classroom and we were all sitting down, usually a teacher will take roll and make sure that everybody's there. Well, not him. He continued to play his guitar for 5 or 10 minutes. And they said, "Oh, you're here already." I was so busy playing the guitar, I just forgot about it. And right then and there, I fell in love with this guy, and from then on, I just became involved in art, and I started to play music at about the same time. And so I became a musician for a long time, and then went to Weber State College, which is Weber State University now, and had another great instructor and professor who let me know about the library. Go there, read. It's your responsibility, and if you don't want to, that's just fine with me. I'll see you at the end of the quarter. And so many people didn't know what to do with that, but I grasped it and embraced it.
And had there been any latent seeds of art interest there? Do you have members of your family who are interested in the arts? Had you sketched or drawn prior to that, or was this just kind of coming in from the cold and having an interest in art be born?
When I was really young, about 8 years old or so, I used to take the line to paper and I would draw on it with a pen constantly all the while. And then as I got older, I became involved in life things. And when I went to that class in high school in my senior year, that's when all of that drawing and everything came into focus. And that's when I was able to say, well, I think I want to do that.
Yeah.
But I went into music and I played professionally and everything. But after I was tired of Holiday Inns and traveling and playing in groups and everything, I thought, well, I think I'll go to school and pick up my art career. And I've been doing it for almost 50 years now. So I'm still taking a run at it.
Yeah, a good little while. We're going to talk a little bit more about that experience as well. But I think that's a good segue to take us in and look at your work. And as we're looking at the work, Daryl, talk to us a little bit about kind of the subject matter and where your interest in abstraction came from. Have you always been an abstract artist, and how has your work developed over time?
I have gone through some different phases, and I've always turned to the abstract. I did a lot of fruit and landscapes and everything. And as I did go to the library and look, I fell in love with some early artists from the 60s. And my work has been about shape and line and all the elements that come with art. But the abstract was really the big draw for me, no pun intended. But I feel like it gives me an open way to express. The music is tied in there too, and so playing music while I'm working and everything just fit the abstract work so well that I just continued with it, and I've been doing it for a long time.
And what is your creative process as you're coming to a new painting? What is the process of developing the work, of creating a composition, and having it all come together?
Well, I'm constantly in the process. I think for me, my work is about gathering information and disseminating it to the proper areas, and then all of a sudden, I'll just turn into it. And I know it may sound kind of strange, but lots of times the work takes over about halfway through. The important thing for me is to start, and I think about it and think about it for days prior to before I start. But there's always ideas running through, and some of them get tossed, and some of them stay with me, and the ones that stay there are the ones that I start to act on. So I'll build canvases. I like to build my own work, and it puts me into contact, into tactile range of working on something that size or whatever. But the process is ongoing all the time, and so there isn't a specific moment that I draw out. Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't. I leave it completely open, and I never look back once I start. I only do one at a time. It's
Yeah, which, as we've seen in our sessions here, might be a little bit unusual among many of our artists, but especially among the abstract artists that we've talked to. Many of them will have several canvases or works developing at any time. Why do you feel that's important to kind of have all your focus on one work?
um, it's not that there's an explanation for it. It's just that I'll start on something, and I have to be wide open. I have to be wide open to the process and let it develop. And I found that working on several things at one time may be a little distracting for that. If I wake up in the middle of the night and I have an answer for what happens, I don't want to not be around when that happens. So I try to keep my eyes and ears and brain focused on just one piece at a time.
And so we've seen several different images. It looks like you have, over the course of your career, worked through some different media. Is most of your work on canvas in acrylic now, or talk to us a little bit about the variety of media?
I when I started out, I did a lot of oils, and then I switched over to acrylic. I also owned a sign company, and did a lot of silk screening, and used that as a stepping stone to have a place to do my work. And so I think that I love collage. I love paper. Uh, I love paint as well. So it's about 50-50. I have work that's on canvas. I have work that's on panel. I have some collage pieces, and then like this one here, Metcalf, that is a serigraph that I designed and printed myself. Since I had the facilities through the sign shop, I kind of set that up so that I would be able to do that. And so I have a group of prints that have hardly never been seen before, and I decided to start turning them loose. But this piece here solo is a collage and acrylic mixture. So I mainly use acrylic, but sometimes I get into alkyd, and sometimes I don't, and it just depends on what the truth is for this piece that I'm working on.
And the scale of your work, are you working in a variety of scales? Is most of your work larger? Or how do you kind of think about the scope and scale of pieces that you're going to work on?
When I was younger, and had more energy and facility, physical facility, I used to do pieces that were 8 feet by 12 feet, um, and up to that size, and maybe even a little bit larger. Being in the sign industry, I was adapted to billboards and doing large things. And back in the 60s and 70s, there were people that were doing large pieces, and it really became a direction that was a possibility for most of my work. But I do smaller things now, but it isn't that I didn't do them then, but I do more smaller pieces now.
Well, I think that gives us a good overview of the work. And so now I'd like to invite our members in to make some comments. I'm going to start with a couple of comments that I received ahead of time via the form. And Patricia Coulter in Alberta says the artwork is wonderful, very ethereal and restful. And I kind of got a lot of echoes of that kind of commentary. She says, keep going. Maybe a series of 2 or 3, and maybe let me throw that out to you, Daryl. Do you work in series, or is each piece its own process?
Well, I've started to do pieces that, in an effort to get a bank of work, instead of jumping around a little bit, I've wanted to do some pieces that were coherent and that fit together a little bit and showed a little bit of my development in terms of getting a work. I guess you would call it getting a label of some sort, getting a continuous flow of work that flows together and isn't necessarily. I think my work, I've been in galleries before, a couple of galleries before and everything, and I always was challenged to do new things, and I just want to start something that follows through, and so I've been starting to do that. The pieces in the background that you see here are part of that, but I've really fallen in love with painting again, and just painting on canvas is extremely joyful for me. So
yeah,
I appreciate the comment.
Well, we're going to come back and I'll let members here comment on what they're seeing in the work. But actually, we're going to come back to that right now. I thought I had another comment there, but let me pull those of you who are here in the live session in for your reaction to Daryl's work. Are you seeing a consistency there? We see in these samples, and admittedly, it's a limited. We've got 5 or 6 images here that we're looking at. Do you see a consistency there? We've got a variety of media. What do you think? What's your reaction to the work and to that question of consistency? If you want to hop in, you can click on the hand icon or throw your hand up in front of the camera. Not sure I can see everybody who's here, but I'll try and get you in. Reaction to the work. And if I don't get a volunteer, I will volunteer you. Who's going to hop in for me? They're leaving us hanging. Okay, Beverly, let's go to you. Good day, Beverly.
Hi there. I've got a really sore throat, but I can't leave. I can't say something. I really like this work. I think it has a feeling of space about it. And I've just been looking at your Instagram page, and it's really peaceful. I do abstract work too. And I think you've really got a lovely sense of balance and color, but it's also interesting as well as peaceful. So yeah, I really like it.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and let's talk about that a little bit. We talked about the creative process and the work itself, but what is the effect that you're trying to achieve with your work? Or what do you want the viewer's experience to be?
I think I've gotten that peaceful and calm in quite a bit, and it's really purposeful for me. I want it. There's so much turmoil in the world, and things that are really, really need a lot of conversation about, but I want my work to be thoughtful, and I want it to be introspective, and that calm feeling. I like minimal work a lot, and I'm kind of turning my guns towards that as well in getting a brand for myself. But I want it to be able to breathe and not be convoluted and mixed up. I want it to be an expression of where I try to be most of the time, which is in congruence with the the universe, and have it be peaceful. I think that's a really good comment, because that's my purpose most of the time.
Yeah, and that's interesting because we'll see. I have several other comments as well, and we see that word several times, peaceful. Melanie, you've got a comment as well. Let me pull you in.
Am I unmuted? There I
Yep,
am.
we've got you now.
Okay. I love how you talk about the peacefulness of it, of your work, yet I see so much contrast, movement, the different shapes, the dynamic colors. And so it's almost a dichotomy there, because I do see that peacefulness, but then just the vibrance of everything is very dynamic.
Yeah, no, Melanie, I think this is a really interesting comment, because I too was caught by, I saw that word peaceful several times. We've mentioned it here. We heard Daryl mention it. But if I look at and examine the work, like especially this piece we're looking at right now, there is a lot of contrast and movement. And I don't think it surprises us to hear you use words like jazz music, because there is a rhythm behind this work. And so it's kind of an interesting kind of piece. I would say it's not the kind of peacefulness that I would get maybe staring at a Mark Rothko painting, or a serene landscape painting. It is a very different kind of peacefulness that maybe comes more from the rhythm of the work and the feel of that interplay between the colors. So maybe Daryl, comment on that a little bit. How do you kind of how do you achieve that effect? What's the magic?
Well, thank you for those comments, and I know that lots of times when I'm working, that's why I work on one piece at a time. I want it to flow, and I wanted to capitalize on the line and the color, and but mostly I try to juxtaposition certain parts of it so that it leaves room for the work to grow, and which begs the question, well, when is it done?
Yes.
I think after 45 or 50 years of painting, I come to a point where I know that a piece has finished, and it's time to move on.
Yeah, because this is a challenge for an abstract painter, right? A landscape artist or a figurative painter or sculptor. They've got a subject. They know when they start that they don't have anything, and as they work, it starts to become more representative of their subject. As an abstract artist, how do you know? How do you know when the piece is fully executed?
I'll try and explain that this way. I have a little saying that I read for myself all the time before I start to work, and that little saying is, overthinking is not better thinking. So I've seen so much work on Instagram and everywhere that seems to me to be, for me, is overworked and is contrived a little bit. I don't know.
Maybe a little fussy.
I want it to breathe. I want it to have room for that activity to go on without, and keeping the subtleties. So like the difference between the big areas and the gray and everything, I want to give that black and everything else room to move. So it's in layers kind of, and that's how I think about when I work. I listen to music, but the work is paramount and primary when I'm working. I want that room. I want things to be able to have an effect on each other and have that conversation. That conversation is really important to me.
Good. Elizabeth, let me pull you in and then I'll go to Jim.
Yeah, I'm very much drawn into these, which for me is always, like a good work. I mean, if a painting pulls me in, then you got me. And I love the ones that have the subtlety in the background, like this one, Reconciliation. I think it's just beautiful the way the background is just as so much activity, and then the foreground of I don't know what the negative positive shape space is here, but anyway, it just really pulls me in very well. And then on top of that, I'm enjoying your titles.
Yes.
They kind of add to that pull in. It's like I'm trying to figure like, how do you decide on your titles? I think they're kind of mysterious at the same time, and so that's holding my attention even more.
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, presents an interesting challenge for every artist, but I think in particular an abstract artist, where you're in a certain sense with a title, you are bringing some interpretation to the work. So how do you come up with your titles, Daryl? And does the title come before the work or after?
It can come anytime. What I do is I love semantics. I love conversations and I love words, but I'll strike on a title or something by doing the same process as I do with the painting. I like words that have phonetics, the phonics of the words as they fit together, or how the painting is. Like in Metcalf here, I love animals. So when I was coming up with this piece, I did the piece, and then I would drive by all the time and see these two cows that used to live in a field clear out where I used to live. And it's as simple as coming up with, I wonder how many people have met calves before. And then it progressed from there and it became Metcalf because of the imagery. But the process is coming to me all the time, just like the artwork, and I'll write down titles. And then I will figure out the work and tie them together towards the end. And if a piece speaks to me differently or has a different voice for itself, that title that I wrote down may be tossed and used at another time. But for the past 10 years, they've come to me while I worked on the piece.
In the process.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Jim, let me pull you in.
Yeah, these really do speak to me. I'm really enjoying everything I'm seeing here, but I do see a couple of that they're either kind of setting a mood in one way, and a couple of them really just kind of tell a story to me. Territories, I think it's Territories. And the one you just mentioned, you've almost answered my question there before I answered, it was on Metcalf. Those are more kind of illustrate a story behind them as opposed to just a mood. This one I read, Metcalf, I think is just wonderful. And when the thing that kind of I find very interesting is that you're mentioning the field and the cows, and I also see what looks to be an electrical outlet. Now, and a baseboard and a wall behind the whole thing. It's really pretty fantastic. Is there something more to? Am I reading too much into these? I mean, the second question, real quick: are you represented by a gallery, or are you just doing this all on your own?
Great questions.
Yeah.
Currently, right now, I am represented by a gallery here in Salt Lake, and I live in Far West, which is a ways away from Salt Lake, but they do represent me. And currently right now we're reviewing that situation. when you've been doing work as long as I have, and you only reach out to your locale, at some point you get saturated. I'm a fairly prolific painter, and I'm still selling work from the gallery, but as I mentioned to Jason, I want to be able to reach out and maybe find some new audiences or new audience, and really get some feedback on my work.
Yeah, Daryl, I think we should take a little bit of a detour here and mention that you have shown with several galleries over the years, and you've also had galleries, I think you mentioned in your introduction. So you have definitely had some experience on the selling side of the business. Maybe talk a little bit about that arc.
When we first started my wife and I started our first gallery here there in Salt Lake. It was called Chroma Gallery, and I wanted to find a place that had the windows, and finally we found a place that had the right windows. In our immediate area, at the time that we opened that gallery, objective work was really the forte. And so I wanted to be able to present that work 24 hours a day to do the abstract thing. And it turned out really, really well. And then the planes hit the Twin Towers, and that had an effect on the gallery and on myself, as well as lots of other people. But whenever I got a piece of work from someone, and I sold work out of there all over the country, whenever someone came in and looked at the work in person, or I got the work to their home, I have a high percentage of turning it. But at the same time, I wanted to keep that honesty. I wanted to keep that feeling, as if I took a piece of work to someone's home and I looked at it and it wasn't working, I said that. And so I think that really helped me understand the people and their domiciles and everything else. But
yeah, let me jump in there, Daryl, and ask you if you feel like that experience that you had, and actually I'm going to pull us out here for a second so we're in the group. That experience that you had having a gallery and showing and selling work, how did that impact maybe your life as an artist and kind of the process of creating the work? What were the results of being on kind of both sides of the business?
It definitely is two sides. There's the art business, and then there's the work. And it gives you a perspective on how to sell, and you divide yourself up, and you commit to, if someone's interested in something. Sometimes it was hard to shift gears because you have a vested interest, and so it's too obvious. You can't just leave it by the wayside. But you learn. I noticed in one of your articles, you said, things that you don't say when you're selling. And I found that so interesting, because those are some of the things that I learned. If you want to stay on a progressive track with someone and give them your attention as an artist and a seller, you have to be honest, but don't shift it away. Because lots of times, you said yourself, it'll be gone. It's over. Once you've said something like, well, I'll give you a time frame to decide on doing this. And so you try to promote that moment where you say, this is working, that's working. This looks wonderful in your home. I think you'll enjoy it for years to come. And so you try to promote yourself and do that. And then sometimes after I would finish that, I would think, man, am I glad that's over with.
No, it is interesting. And, there is a fine art to the business side of things, certainly, and a learning process and trial and error. And I'm often asked, hey, Jason, do you paint or do you sculpt? Do you create? And I say, I love art, but I can't afford to do that. I cannot afford to be on both sides of the business. My focus has to be in one place. So I always admire an artist who's kind of able to straddle and do both. And I wonder that kind of takes us into some of the more practical questions, Daryl. Let's talk a little bit. And let me pull these pieces back up. Talk a little bit about your pricing structure. How do you value the works, and how is that pricing structure developed over time? We're looking at a piece here that's a 48 by 72. It's listed at 6,800. So how do you come up with that price?
And listening to your program and having your insight into this, I realized a while back that the art business was part of the business, and it's how you support and initiate your work. And so when I got into the gallery business, I learned quickly that whatever percentage anyone takes, being in another gallery or being in your own gallery and being on the side of selling someone else's work, you need to have enough out of your work to pay for it, to promote it, and make sure that you're heading down a positive path and not down a path where you all of a sudden you go from $48 to $4,800, and you do it gradually, and you build up, and you think about your work and how much work is involved in it and your development and how much time and everything. But I try to price things that are pretty close to market value from all the research I've done with other people's work. So it's a real process, and for some people it may be a little low. For some people it may be a little high, but I wanted to be within reach, but I wanted to make sure that I could support that business. So.
And are you, you mentioned that you're showing with the gallery and work is selling. Over the last several years, obviously we've been through a pandemic, but have you seen sales continue? Are they steady? What's kind of the pace of sales that you see?
For me, they've been pretty steady. I don't sell a whole ton of work, but I still make a good dollar amount for what work, and especially since I work one at a time. I think the work has a tendency to speak for itself and the quality of the work. And I want to do the same thing with the business. I want to develop it. I don't want to just crash and burn somewhere. I wanted to have that work. 50% is a standard hit. And if you're not getting it high enough to be able to support your materials and pandemic prices and everything else, then
maybe even put a little food on the table.
Yeah, maybe have enough to buy some lemonade and a Coca-Cola once in a while and a milkshakes or something. But that's what you have to do. And when you're within market reach, you can always raise your prices and you can always lower them. But you just lowering them is you want to make that continuous, and you want to make it consistent. And it has to be consistent or it doesn't work.
And you've mentioned too that you would potentially like to expand your reach and be showing in other markets. And so, as you think about that and kind of look at your production, how much work is coming out of the studio, what are your hopes and aspirations in terms of expanding your exposure?
Well, I used your method again. I'm preparing something online to send out to galleries, and I realized that there's a lot of people doing artwork, and so I hope my work will be somewhat individualized and hope someone will do that. I'm looking forward to reaching out to people who don't know me personally and having an effect on them and have my work be in their home or on their business so that they can enjoy it. And it gives me the perspective and validation to go on and do what I need to do.
Yeah, good. And yes, I would encourage you. You mentioned you're creating a portfolio and getting ready to send that out. I would think that there are a lot of potential markets that where your work could certainly find interest and find a home. Both what I would think of as well-developed art markets like a Santa Fe or Scottsdale or Chicago. But then I would also think that there would be a good number of galleries in even maybe areas that aren't thought of as art markets per se, but could have a good potential audience like a Charlotte or an Atlanta. Markets that would be somewhat similar, I would think, to a Salt Lake City, where you get a variety of different kinds of buyers there. And so I don't know. Let me go ahead and bring the audience in. Would you encourage Daryl to reach out with his work and put it out in front of gallery owners? What words of encouragement might you give as he's preparing to do that? And I'll just wait here awkwardly until I get some feedback.
I think you definitely should go for it. I think it's a very high standard and it would be very attractive to galleries.
Yeah, and I'm seeing some comments in the chat. Absolutely, go for it. I think that what we've seen here is that you've created work that is interesting. There is a quality about it that would allow it to naturally fit into the kind of venue or I should say the kind of setting where a clientele could afford the work at the prices that you've listed. And so I would echo that encouragement to push forward and go for it. Carol, I see you've got a hand up too. Let me pull you in.
Hi there. One thing that I find intensely appealing about your work is the depth that you've brought into your work, not just with the layers and composition, not a lot of depth. I think it's stunning, fabulous work. And to quote an uncle of mine, God hates a coward. So yeah. go for the top markets. Start there. Start big. Go big or go home.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's nice.
Yeah, and I do. I again, I'm going to echo, but I do think that there is just some real power in pushing forward and being bold. And I know that it's, and this will not be the first time that I've said this, that it can feel intimidating to the prospect of putting your work out there and potentially having many gallery owners say, "Oh, it's fine, but it's not our thing," or maybe even saying, "What is this?" And sometimes getting that negative feedback. But all of that is just the gateway that's preventing us sometimes from pushing forward and getting to the other side and getting into venues where people are just going to love the work and are going to have the same response that we've had here today, only they're going to collect it rather than just talking about it. And I think I would encourage all of us to be on that track where we're thinking, okay, what do I need to do next to be pushing my career forward and to be giving people the opportunity to experience and see my work. Melanie, let me pull you in.
Well, I just wanted to say real quick, you have the experience of being a gallery owner yourself. So it's a little bit of an unfair advantage you've got over us. Yeah. And your work is amazing. I mean, it really is very high quality, professional, intriguing. So I just can't imagine you would have any problem. Just go for it.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much. Sure. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think we would hear that advice from everyone here. And somehow we have managed to do it and run ourselves right out of time again, looking at and sharing your work, Daryl. I just want to thank you so much for coming into the critique group and joining us for the session and sharing your background and your artwork. We sure enjoyed talking to you and encourage you to push forward.
Well, thank you very much, Jason. I appreciate everybody's comments, and it really helps me out. the art business is a great business, but I just don't take it that personally anymore. I want to push ahead with the positive things and let it roll. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone in the group saw it and maybe had feelings either way, but it sounds really positive. So
Yeah,
I appreciate
definitely. Well, thank you so much. And thanks to everyone for joining us for this session. It's always fun to be here with you on a Wednesday morning. We'll be back here next Wednesday for another session. And next week is an Ask Me Anything session. So if there are particulars that we've talked about in today's session or the past few sessions that you want to explore further, or ask questions about how they might apply to your work, next week is the opportunity to do that. Keep an eye out for an email, and I'll look forward to receiving your questions and continue.